Hello, my name is Steve McQuarrie, and I'm a technical marketing engineer with Cisco's Data Center Product Group. This video is part of a series that is intended to show some of the unique advantages made possible by Cisco's server offering called the Unified Compute System, or UCS for short. This video will show the viewer the details of managing drive volumes on standalone rack mount servers without the need for host agents or rebooting the host into the RAID adapter configuration firmware. As with all servers, we need to start up by booting our system. After we've booted our system, we'll be able to access the Cisco Integrated Management Controller. Here, as we watch the boot, we notice that this system has no virtual drives created or presented, although there are two physical drives present. So now we access the Cisco Management Controller and we go into the Storage tab. From here we can click on Details, or we can go over to the left here and select the Storage Configuration tab. Here we can see that there are two physical drives in the system, and if we take a look at the virtual drive configuration, there are none, so we'll go create virtual drives from the physical drives. So we select our RAID level, choose the drives that we want to be part of the drive group, and then down here we can give that particular volume a name. So we'll give it a name that makes sense to us within the management controller. After that, we'll select any options we want and then create the virtual drive. After a moment or two, the virtual drive will be created. So now if we go back and look into the system, we still see the two physical drives. We see that they're good as opposed to unconfigured good, and then we now see that there is a virtual drive configured on the system. So at this point in time, we've booted our system, we've loaded an operating system, and we want to add some drives to the system. So now we'll go in and take a look at the physical drives, and we'll go off and physically insert some drives into the system. And we now see that after refreshing the screen, those drives are unconfigured good within our actual system here. So keep in mind that the operating system is still running. So we add one of these drives as a hot spare. Now we'll see it come online as a hot spare. At the same time here, we've added a couple of other drives to the system, and we see that one of these has a foreign configuration in them, and the other one is in a good state. But the foreign configuration has provided us an error message, basically telling us that there's something we need to look at on our drive. In this case, it's the fact that there's a foreign configuration. So we'll clear that foreign configuration and refresh the screen and see that now everything is good and all of our status goes back to green on these drives. So at this point, we'll bring the operating system back up and simultaneously look at the operating system and the SIMC configuration. So now we want to create a couple of more drives, another drive group on the system. So we'll select a RAID level 1 here, select a couple of drives, put them in the drive group, and we'll give this volume another name for the system to be identified within SIMC. And then we'll go in and create this drive group. Now notice on the right hand side, we instantaneously see this drive group being created within the Windows operating system. There are no agents loaded on this system. We did not have to reboot the server to make this happen. We also have a drive that's a dedicated drive as a hot spare. Before we do that, we'll go in and create another drive group, yet a third drive group, a RAID 0 drive group here, and add this one to the system as well. And again, instantaneously in the operating system, we see the drive group created, and then we'll see it within the SIMC as well. So now we'll go in and we'll initialize these drives, basically set them up to be used by the system within Windows. So standard operating procedure here to get the drives up and operational, provide them a drive number, etc. A drive letter, etc. and basically instantiate them. They become usable drives. Keep in mind there are no agents on the system. We've not had to reboot the system at all to make this work. Simply creating the drive groups within the Cisco Integrated Management Controller allows us to access these in the operating system immediately. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a hot spare here, but we made it a dedicated hot spare for our first drive group. So what we want to do for this hot spare is actually change it. We want to take it out of being a hot spare and then make it a global hot spare. So again, without making any changes to the system, without rebooting the system, we can go in and make these type of changes to the RAID settings within the Cisco Integrated Management Controller. And this is all made possible through the use of an out-of-band management controller or an out-of-band management pathway between the Cisco Integrated Management Controller and the adapter within the system. So we can see here as we make these changes, they become active in the system. Again, it has no effect on the operating system. Everything continues to operate within the OS itself. And all of these changes are being made directly to the RAID controller. Now, here we've seen that we failed a drive. Essentially, we pulled a drive out. And we see that as we pulled that drive out, we now have a moderate fault on one of our RAID groups. And because we had that global hot spare, we start rebuilding that RAID group immediately. And we can see the status of that. So the key thing to understand here is that Cisco Integrated Management Controller Drive Management allows us to basically go in and boot the server. Once we get power on, we can go into the SIMC and we can control all of the drive configuration settings. As we're creating drives, rebuilding drives, etc., that information is readily available and configurable without the use of an agent. So once we've installed the operating system, there's never a need to reboot the system or to add an agent onto the operating system, which then has to be managed in order to make the server work or get the server in a state where you want it. Whereas you can see with competitors, you either have to add that agent or you have to constantly reboot the system, taking the host down to make those changes. So to recap, local drive management can be a challenge in many environments, and the standalone Cisco Integrated Management Controller helps by providing a simple method for configuration and management of local drive volumes that does not require disruption of the server or installation of a host agent. This ends this UCS Advantage video, where we show how the unique capabilities in Cisco UCS can lead to simplified deployment models with much faster turnaround to meet the increasing demands of the business. Please go to www.cisco.com/go/UCS for printed collateral, including a brochure that highlights the information shown in this video. Thank you.